question. If you were some type of edible, what would you be? I think I would be lenteja. I love them. They can be done with rice. They can be done. Hola, Mateo. We are talking about if you were some type of edible, what would you be? And I am saying that I would be a lenteja, because they are delicious when you prepare them with vegetables. You can prepare it with rice. You can like make falafel, and they never like damage. They are really cheap, and I like them. So yeah, I would be a lentil. And what would you be, Durgadas?
I think I would be a hemp seed, just because I really like them on my salads and in things, but not just for but because they create hemp, and so hemp is just such an unbelievably amazing, and it would be actually a world-changing sort of crop about this. In fact, Sean has a whole architecture of how to revolutionize the world on the back of using hemp. So I would say hemp seed is really good, because I feel like it's like this revolutionary, sort of thing that could change the world if you used it properly. But you can also eat it and use it in medicine and all these other things. So it's amazing.
Septimus already went.
No, falta Septimus y Mateo.
¿Me puedes traducir la palabra en castellano? Es que no he entendido muy bien la pregunta.
Que si fueras algún tipo de comida, ¿qué tipo de comida serías? Entonces yo sería una lenteja y Durga estaba diciendo una hemp seed. Ajá.
Wow, I don't know. I like lemon, so I'll go with that. It's super good for everything. It tastes amazing. Yeah, I'll be a lemon, and it helps a lot. So yeah, and I'll pass it to Mateo.
I would go with dark chocolate, because sometimes I can be sweet and sometimes I cannot. 72% cacao chocolate, and I love chocolate.
Chocolate.
Yeah.
I also love dark chocolate.
Chocolate. Okay. Well, that was the initial ice break. I want to know if all of you have the notes. I just shared the link in the T general.
Do you mind sharing your screen? It's easier for the recording.
Okay. Okay. I will. Screen. Yeah. So I want to go back before starting with the points I initially wrote. With this point of spiral dynamics, can you please, Durgadas, try to explain and try to tell how can this help us with conflict management and
Okay. So if you can have everybody bring up the graphic that's in the gravity page, it's a circular graphic with the colors. It says all quadrants, all levels. So do you guys see that? Yeah, so you probably want to maybe download it and open it, yeah, more fully because it's big, and then you can click on the plus to kind of zoom in there and zoom back, so you can move it around as we're talking. So one of the things I just want to explain is the idea behind the spiral is this is a transcending and inclusive sort of thing. So you see how the all four different directions that the lines go. As you develop through the spiral, what happens is that you transcend and include the previous one. So as we move outward, we basically, so the yellow that's in the middle is basically like the survival instinct. The purple is like when we kind of all get together in these tribal clans. The red is a little bit more like now we start to get into, like the um, I don't know, mythologies and feudal empires. The blue is a little bit more like the ancient nations, corporate states. We're basically what we're trying to do is, I think what we're trying to do here in tech is to move its quadrant, which is the systems that are involved, from the orange out into the green, and then eventually into the yellow. So just from a contextual standpoint, most of the people who are actually going to participate in the tech community are going to tend to be in these value communities idea. Like the whole thing about green is all about everyone's coming together, everyone's constantly talking about the democratic nature of the process, the fact that it's super important to have everybody involved and all of that. But the thing is that depending on where we are individually, we may be in a blue stage of development or a red stage of development or a yellow stage of development or whatever. And so the great thing about this is what it actually does is, what you can see is what we use as monetary systems is a way to actually abstract out the tensions that exist between not only the colors but also the quadrants. So as for example, if you can imagine trying to navigate between the brain and the organism. So let's say, for example, you're injured. So now the I has a need to do a thing that the it can't fix for itself. So you rely on the we to take you to produce a situation that would create hospitals and doctors and other people, and then the systems that are in place that would actually put you into this, kind of setup where you could actually get the help that you need. And so what you can kind of see is that there is these different aspects of the human experience which are kind of represented, and then as we basically what this is it's a needs um, uh, architecture. So every single thing that you see in here is some level of a need or a strategy about getting needs met in the four different ways in which these things can happen. And what's nice about this is that you can then say, okay, if I'm having a conflict, where is this person coming from? Are they coming from the upper right side or the upper left side? Are they, you know what I'm saying? And if their need is going to be met, is it going to be met by something, to the left or to the right? Does it require a better appreciation for their individual understanding, or does it need some contextualization inside of the we, which is the bottom half of the quadrants? You see what I'm saying? And so by trying to understand these things and seeing how those relationships and generalities work, then you can kind of tend to understand better what's happening with the individual people who are having the needs, right? So this is a very beautiful, very complex and flexible understanding of how to assess needs. Now, what I mentioned before about nonviolent communication, what that does is it allows us to if you take nonviolent communication's general idea of not making an enemy image out of somebody, what this does is it gives you some ability to then, instead of saying, well, this person's wrong or bad or whatever, it will give you the idea about how to actually contextualize the person in terms of whether their needs are being met or not met. And if a person's needs are being not met for long enough, then what'll happen is like what we're seeing in this. So even, for example, the move on the bottom right quadrant of our need around the creation of these democratic monetary systems is because the corporate states and the ancient nations and the feudal empires have squeezed us so hard now and have externalized costs onto us so much that we now want to be able to create a value community of our own that is democratic in nature. And so this is actually how the different spirals are created, because they ping pong back and forth between the warm colors being the I colors, and then the cool colors being the blue, green, and turquoise being the we colors, right? And so what I'm hoping is that when you're actually talking about nonviolent communication with somebody, you can focus instead of on what their needs are. And because this is a really beautiful overview of how needs actually the architecture of needs exist, then I think that'll help with the conflict management and the prevention of and the architecture of these systems in such a way that that we can sort of build some of this stuff into the systems that we have, such that when we're referring back then to a person who's having a conflict, we can understand better what's going on. So I hope that made sense. That was a quick summary.
I really like that. I will have to check it into more detail, but that what you mentioned makes all sense, because that I believe that that's the point of how an holistic system would work, finding the dynamisms in the form that the quadrants are shown. But I love it. I think I will check it into more detail before giving a more detailed opinion. But great one.
And Sebnem and Sean and Pavian and I are all working on a way to architect this so that it actually then goes into a way that we can deal with it both programmatically and um, from a from an economic standpoint. And basically, what you can kind of see is the different colors represent basically a different set of values about what's going on. And so seen from the turquoise level, which is kind of where you should understand this is a holarchy, not a hierarchy. So there aren't really, that's the reason why it's represented in a circle, because it kind of doesn't make sense to refer to it like as a higher or lower kind of situation, because every single thing as you move outward, like the orange is encompassing the blue and the red and the purple and the yellow. The green is encompassing the orange, the blue, the red, the purple, and the yellow. And so, but the basic idea of this is that it seems to me that what we've done is we've done the ultimate reductionist thing, which is to say, I'm going to take a dollar value and I'm going to use that as a method of negotiation between all of the quadrants, between each other, between all of the colors, you know what I'm saying, and the complex relationship that all of those have kind of all at one time. And so what we're doing is kind of developing a theory of how that works, and we've already moved forward with creating some Venn diagrams and other stuff. But I woke up this morning with an understanding that what this was a needs architecture. Now, depending on how your feelings are related to needs, because either these things are being met or they're not being met. But whether they're being met or not being met, it tends to create a kind of stress in one where you will either you'll either be residing in the color, moving into a color, or moving out of a color. in many ways. So that's what I'm saying, is that the culture generally is far too orange right now, and the stress of that is basically what created the whole tech community to try to to make this into a much more democratic kind of a situation, which moves the thing to green. On the other hand, we have a lot of technocrats, and those technocrats have sat in their bubbles for a long time and created a lot of yellow things where they have this massive knowledge in which they can say, okay, now I have an overview. So, by the way, the yellow and the outside bit there, the yellow and the turquoise, those represent tier 2 thinking. So there's kind of tier 1, which is that all the green on in, and then there's the tier 2, which is the yellow on out. And the idea being behind those being that what tier 1 and tier 2 are able to do is to understand the entire tier 1 spiral as a place that they can move through. So somebody who's like me, who's in a turquoise level, can basically adjust to all the different people who are dealing with blue or purple or red or orange or green, and give them what they need to progress in their given situation. And I think that that's super important for a conflict management group, to have people who are in the second tier to be able to go, okay, I get where you're coming from. The yellow person is going to want to tend to create systems around that stuff, whereas the person who's in turquoise will want to then integrate that stuff. So it's a feature of tier 1 or tier 2 rather, from the yellow and the turquoise side of it, to differentiate those two things. The the yellow is going to tend to want to sort of go investigate it all, do a bunch of research, figure out what's going on, create a bunch of architectures and systems to do that, because they don't actually know how to intuitively integrate all that stuff within themselves, right? And in many ways, you have to think that what the tech community is doing and what the overall need of this thing is to have a yellow solution, because money is never going to be intuitive in some kind of way. It's always going to be a system, you know, until we get to the Star Trek land where we're then in we're then in the turquoise general thing for society. So in any case, what I wanted you to see was that it's actually a lot of what we're attempting to do is in this boundary between the green and the yellow. And all the systems and all the research and all the creation that we're doing now is basically going back and forth between those two things. And yet some of the people who will use these systems will come from any number of different colors, any number of different situations. And so we need to architect money in such a way that it actually makes sense for all of these different people and all the different places they're coming from. And if we don't have a conflict management solution for people who are on survival in the yellow, people who are on purple, who are just gathered together in clans, if we don't have a solution for these empires, which are then created out of those clans, if we don't have a solution for the ultra orthodox blue, who's can see nothing but boundaries, and if we don't have a solution for the orange, whose job it is to strategize and create more strategies about what's going on, then we don't actually have a system that's going to work for all of these different people. And this is a great way to understand all of it and build the systems in such a way that it would hopefully reduce the overall conflict in the system itself, as well as meeting all of the human needs, as well as sort of generally functioning better than what I think the current national currencies and other things are not doing, because they're tied to a different kind of thinking at a different level. So sorry for the long introduction, but I felt like it was a complex.
No, it's really useful, and what I really like is the way they present the information, and I think it's really clear. So I think that we have this like board for the unwanted behavior and the like written and has been done through the Miro board. But I think that we can somehow like try to adapt this scale of conflict and suggested sanctions, and try to make it into this spiral dynamics. Like to put what we think is the way that we are addressing the conflicts, but in each one of these scales. I think it would be a good visual representation.
Well, and the other part that has a direct connection to conflict is that one of the foundational features of tier one thinking is that it tends to look at the other colors and go, "Oh, those people are completely misguided. There's something that's completely wrong about their thinking." And so it's actually true that you can hear and feel the difference between when somebody's coming from a tier one kind of space, because they'll just be like, that's completely wrong, and they'll have this completely like idealistic idea about what's happening about that thing. But it's interesting so there's attitude and there's altitude, right? So the attitude is with tier one is always going to be this kind of everyone else is wrong except for my particular way of thinking. Once you get into tier two, that sort of stuff kind of goes away, right? And it seems to me that if we're going to build systems and we're going to resolve conflicts, we've always got to be at tier two in order to be able to resolve them, right? Because if we're down there tier one and we're just going, everyone else is wrong, how am I going to resolve anything that way except by getting them to succeed to my demand? So that goes back to the request versus demand thing in nonviolent communication, and hopefully you can see how it all kind of works.
I think I'm going to keep reading and keep and try to propose and try to have a proposal for the next session where we can fit our proposal, our initial proposal of conflict management inside this visual structure, and like try to see which are the tiers and which are which are the tiers related to the unwanted behavior, and also related to what would be the sanctions. And I can present that to have feedback from the community. But I think it will be good to use like this kind of diagram. I think it's very useful.
Somebody who's so if you go to spirals.blog, which is the group that I'm a part of that talks about spiral dynamics a lot, and you guys could attend the Wednesday 5 p.m. PST. We have a Google Hangout that we do that shows up in the weekly meeting channel inside of the Slack channel that is available on spirals.blog. But one of the ladies there, her name is Wendy Foxworthy, and she's actually worked with Spiral Dynamics directly inside of companies and stuff for 10 years. It was her job. So it actually might be a really interesting person to have on as a guest here during the Gravity thing to talk about how that works inside of groups as well. So if this is a thing that you're seriously thinking about doing, it might be great to just have her along.
Invite her. It would be great to have her. And with that, I want to advance to the points of the agenda. And first, I want to keep promoting the use of the typeform. The idea of this typeform is that people feel free and feel that that is a safe way and a safe space to express their feelings, and that they can write if they are having an issue with that with a member of the organization, or if they have an issue on the way the organization is dealing on some of the problems, or if they just have a suggestion for organization, so that this information is not through the channels or through the Telegram, and is handled in a very strategic. So yeah, if any of you somehow hear of someone who is saying that they feel they are not being treated right, or that they experienced something that they didn't like, or you see something like, you can like write it in this type form, and the idea is to address this information the most strategical and the most sensitive way we can.
Can I make a suggestion about the typeform?
Yes.
In step number 3, what would you like to communicate to the system? We've got suggestions, and then we've got everything around scale. I do wonder if it would make sense to include something in there. It's like there's a structural problem. Like, for example, like you feel a certain group is being left out, or as opposed to something which is defined by scale. You know what I mean? More something defined. The conflict that you're having is something that seems to come up again and again because a certain structure exists inside of this group, right? So I don't know the best way to say that. I'm just saying that it feels to me like there could be some helpful hints out of that.
Yeah, I think, and about that, and what I feel about sometimes about structural problems is that we are always trying to improve our structures, and every structure is going to have, while they try to solve past problems, they generate new problems. So yeah, the idea of adding this would be to have a very dynamic structure that can address the problems. If I can understand what you're saying.
Yeah, because it might not be a conflict with a given person. It may be a conflict just interacting. Like, for example, I have a fundamental difficulty with the fact that we use like 15 different platforms for all different kinds of things. And it just, every single meeting I'm in, it's a new platform that why didn't somebody just tell me this up front? Go out and create a Miro account, go out and create a Google Docs account, and go just do all this stuff. And I just find myself constantly behind the 8-ball. It creates the kind of feeling like I can't keep up in the meetings, I can't contribute, I can't, do you know what I mean? So there could be a structural problem that exists there. Maybe there's native perspectives which are not considered in these structural situations, and that was brought up when we had the guy from Spirit Coin talking. They have a completely different method of thinking than a certain colonized tendency we're all going to have in this culture. So what about that structural problem? So I'm just giving you 2 examples.
That can be added, and it's a really good it's a really good input. It's a really good input, because that's what we're trying to do, to make our organization dynamic and adaptive. So it's good, and I will add it to the typeform. And yeah, the idea is to try to be using this channel. And this is the second question, the second point of this agenda, which I want to discuss today, and is that can we agree? Can we have this acceptance of that having a group of members inside the community for the community is still mutual monitoring and that there is no external on them, I state that yes, because the monitors are the members of the community and everyone can fill the type form and even with conflict managers or with the conflict management process. So what I'm trying to say is that I was reading Elinor Ostrom chapter 3 this week, and she was talking about a lot about monitoring and the benefits of mutual monitoring, but also the cons of mutual monitoring, the problems, and how can we address them. So for mutual monitoring, it's very important to have consent and to have legitimacy and to know that everyone agrees on the mutual monitoring system that is being in place. So what I'm trying to say is that gravity is based on mutual monitoring. It's based on that if anyone on the community can fill this type form and can inform and can monitor the behavior of the others to ensure the social agreements, but there is a specific group of people inside the community that is held accountable processing those requests. So my initial take is that yes, but I want to know if we can have consent, or if there are different points of view to this, and that some of you think that having a group of people that is accountable of this would be against the mutual monitoring. So and why? So yeah, that's my question.
I think we can have both, and it should not be against the mutual monitoring. I think it's nice to have like mutual monitoring, and I don't, for example, when there is a conflict, have that people accountable. Also, in the book says like I remember now from the English words. The Spanish part, when they were talking, like they have like people accountable on that, and yeah, I think that's still a community thing, and it's cool to have. But I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, my thought is that it's the people who are in this group aren't specifically I wouldn't say in a way they're accountable. I think it's really just a matter of like, it would just be like if I was a person who was trained as a medical doctor and I'm living in society, I have some basic responsibility to leverage my skill for the benefit of the group. You know what I'm saying? And I think the only reason why I'm involved in the gravity group is because I've done all this work around this kind of stuff, and I've founded multiple NVC groups, and I've studied it for a long time, and it just seems incumbent upon me to use that experience for the benefit of the group. I'm not entirely sure that it makes me somehow different or special. It's just simply, I think it's just a basic responsibility of participating in community.
I really like that comparison with doctors, because yeah, that's the idea. It's to have people inside our community that are members of the community, that are not external of the community, that have responsibilities on looking for what is best for the group, and to address issues that may arise between the people and the system. So I really like that conception. But it bases on and agrees on the point of Septimus and I that this mutual monitoring that we are proposing is not implying some sort of I liked another analogy that I heard this week, that is like making a bubble. Like, yeah, there are things that happen on the outside can happen on the inside, and we can have like this communication between inside and outside. But we have this bubble that would be our bubble of internal management, where what can be solved inside the bubble could stay there, and that problems or that things that go outside of the bubble are because they strategically need to or benefit from going from to the outside.
Well, and the thing is that it seems to me that we just should somewhere in our thing that we should specifically state that relationship. Like a person who has certain kinds of skills, it's incumbent upon them to actually exercise those skills. And it's interesting because this is actually in the United States Constitution. If you actually talk about it, we hold these truths to be self-evident. So you're saying all these things, but in some way they're already existing within the nature of the person themselves, and therefore there is both a benefit and a responsibility to them simultaneously. And by participating in community, it has benefits and responsibilities.
Yes,
And as somebody who comes in with the illusion that there's only benefits or that they don't have a responsibility because we're the people with skill, that's not okay either.
that totally connects with the third point of the agenda, that is about reviewing the epic on GitHub about the conflict management role design. What I am proposing here is to have to state what is the role, the benefits, and the requirements of acting as a conflict manager in the community. And
But also,
I am
what is the
stating that
role
they
responsibility of a community member? Because some of those
Can
are
you
the
explain
same.
a little bit more?
So what I mean to say is it seems to me that a person's desire to contribute to a community directly arises from their own ability to actually have some contribution to it. Therefore, that is a basic responsibility of participating in a group. And that's true of all communities everywhere. If I show up in a community, what do I do? I have to participate. That is both a benefit and a responsibility. So that's all I'm saying.
Senhul always plays bad on me when I'm okay. Yeah, I agree with you. So I think that what you're saying is that we should have like this document where we can say the benefits of each member of the organization. And I think that's something that the onboarding group is doing, and that they have this document where they say what is expected from a computer, what is expected from a steward, what is expected from a subject matter expert. So yeah, I think they are doing that. And even though we are working in different working groups, I think that the idea of the final idea is to merge the work that we are all doing with the organization. So I think that what I am trying to do here is to make this new role to state what would be the benefits, the requirements of this new role of conflict manager,
Okay.
and to add it into the onboarding document. Okay. So
I think what we are trying to say in here is. For example, when there is a conflict, when you are in a community, maybe sometimes there is a conflict like the community itself cannot resolve, and this. But I also think like when we design that role, it's important like to have some, I don't know, like some system to be like a very, like the guy who's doing it is because he love it and he wants to help the people, like not, I don't know, not for the sake of the rewards or stuff like that. It has to be very well designed. But the main goal of that role is like when there are some conflicts that the community itself cannot not solve by its own, and it should help to. I mean, sometimes there is force. Like there is some part of the community don't like us that stuff. They didn't do this fork, but maybe you can avoid that. Or yeah, I think that would be the role we're looking for.
conflict manager role shouldn't be someone looking for rewards, but someone who is very interested in the well-being of the system.
Well, like I was saying before, if you look at the boundary between tier 1 and tier 2 thinking in the quadrants, you can see that in some ways tier 2 is like a transcendent of the individual aspects of what's going on. And so that's kind of implied by what Zeptimus, I think, was saying.
Yeah, I think it's awesome to connect with that spiral you were bringing today. I think that's an amazing, and if we can bring it to the system, that would be so cool.
So, for example, is this a conflict between like the I and the its? Is this the conflict between the I and the we? Is this a conflict between the we and the its? You know, trying to sort those things out is important.
That's awesome, really awesome.
Okay, I think what I am going to try to do is to take the mirror board and to make a spiral dynamic and to try to like have this to try to express this idea in the mixed with spiral dynamics. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's gonna. You probably want to have somebody who's been around that for a little bit more, because, for example, the kinds of rules that a purple person is going to break are going to be different than the kind of rules that a red person is going to break. And the problem with blue is not going to be about rule breaking. It's going to be about crushing rule enforcement. So you have to have different kind of strategies for dealing with the different colors, right? And you kind of have to be familiar with some of that. So blue is just going to squeeze the life out of out of whatever it is in order to maintain order at the expense of the individual. whereas red's just going to be like, woo, let's go kill people. So it's a completely different kind of way of expression of a thing you could have conflict with.
Sometimes what I don't like is to say these things like, hey, you're blue. I think those sometimes are categorical affirmations, and that can fall into some kind of reductionism. So yeah, I mean, I like to go to have structures, but I don't like to be too much like confident of them, because each time we make a diagram, we can fall into our own biased idea of success. So yeah,
So,
I think
and that's what
I
I'm
like
saying.
this visual.
That's exactly what I'm saying. The thing that you're talking about is the blue response to that would be to overly define that. Do you see what I'm saying? And but that's why it's so important for us on the conflict resolution group to not fall for those tricks, and why it's so important for us to be in the tier 2 space, because then we as conflict managers wouldn't fall for the trick of that.
Okay. Have something you want to share, or want to comment? Mateo, what do you think?
Was
Um,
something or needed, but I want to check on more what Durgadas was mentioning on the dynamics quadrant. So I will check on that to go for more information next time. But sorry, I was distracted.
Durgadas, and you can share with me, if it's possible, the link or the contact of this person you are telling me that she's an expert, or if you prefer that I assist to the next Wednesday 5 p.m. call that of the group you were telling us about, because what I think and what I feel sometimes is that we have this barrier of different languages, and I think that we all are addressing the same, and we all are expressing the same, but ones do it with squares, and other ones do it with rounds, with circles. So it's like we have to try to make this common language, and to agree. So I think it's very important to be able to put ourselves in the other side and in the other points of view, and to try to understand what the other is trying to say, more than the words that they pronounce, because language, it's very tricky, and especially between these communities where every one of us speaks a different language, and comes from a different reality.
That's very true, and that's actually what I am saying. This is as close to a theory of everything that I can figure out that would give us this sort of shared place, and it is big enough and inclusive enough to kind of handle a lot of the stuff that goes on within this community.
Okay. I think if we don't have any points on the agenda, and if we don't have any more things to talk, we can end this session 5 minutes ahead.
I'd just like to make a suggestion. That maybe you and I just have a working group, or whoever wants to participate, but just to about merging in the stuff that we have in with the spiral dynamics thing, and then once we have that, then to get like an expert real insight into it from somebody like Wendy after we've done that.
I'd love to participate.
I think I can share. Perdón, Septimus.
No, I just wanted to say, like, the idea Durgadas is saying, I'd love to participate. This is so interesting, really.
Great.
Yeah, I think there's no need for an additional like working group, but we can have like inside this working group to have to work on this.
Oh, great.
And I will try
that can
to
just be that. Yeah.
I will try to put this in a Miro board, and I will share the link because I think it will be very important. It will be like very inclusive to express our ideas in this in this way. So thanks everyone, and I hope to keep seeing you today in 2 hours in the community call. And yeah, thanks for everything.